I never conceived of a moment when the soul I held dearest could transmute into an absolute stranger in the blink of an eye. The shattering commenced with a furtive glance at a text, an illicit message that instantly decimated the entire architecture of my understanding of us. My heart hammered a frantic rhythm. My hands became unsteady, and for a breathless instant, the world seemed to tilt, for the reality I was poised to confront promised a cruelty far deeper than my most unsettling fears. Every shared chuckle, every intimate dialogue exchanged under the veil of night, now resonated with the hollow echo of a deception, and in my innermost core, I instinctively knew that once the complete chronicle was unveiled, nothing would ever regain its former shape. The dawn etched itself into my memory with stark clarity. Golden light cascaded into our dwelling, yet my senses were dulled, my gaze elsewhere. A burgeoning disquiet held my thoughts captive, an apprehension I found impossible to dislodge. The tableau of domesticity unfolded as usual. The rich aroma of coffee, the steady thrum of the refrigerator, the distant symphony of urban transit. But then, my eyes caught a digital whisper, a misplaced secret on his device that was never intended for my sight. A moral battle raged within. Should I intrude? Should his digital sanctity remain inviolable? Yet a visceral certainty, cold and sharp, warned me that avoidance would only prolong the internal tremor. I crossed the digital threshold of his phone, and my vision immediately snagged on a thread of communication, exchanges that sent a jolt through my core and ignited a frantic disbelief in my mind. The words were confidential whispers, profoundly personal confessions, undeniably clandestine communications. The chasm between his presented reality and this hidden narrative yawned impossibly wide. Chronology, duration, identities, each detail converged to forge an image I was utterly unprepared to confront. The bedrock of my existence, once stable and secure, began its slow, agonizing disintegration with every line I consumed. I scoured the archives of our shared history for a flicker, a premonition, trying to decipher any sign that might have forewarned me. But the illusion of normalcy had been flawlessly maintained until this shattering revelation. How could such duplicity reside behind a facade of affection, shared laughter, and whispered vows, concealing a darkness so profound? Then came the cryptic summonses, calls from unfamiliar origins, vanishing digital traces, and the sudden, disquieting evasion in his gaze. Every primal sense shrieked a warning. This was no mere concealment of secrets. It was the deliberate obfuscation of his very existence, a profound deceit woven into the fabric of his being. The hours dissolved into an indistinct haze. My attempts at dialogue met with calibrated responses, each movement a carefully constructed charade. The identity I thought I knew had dissolved, replaced by a chilling enigma. My companions sensed my silent anguish, my distant disposition, yet the words of revelation remained imprisoned within me. This burden of truth, this unveiled perfidy, was mine alone to confront. As twilight fell, I found myself ensnared in an intricate web of falsehoods. A grim resolve settled within me. I had to plumb the depths, even if it meant dismantling the edifice of my own life. An unyielding force within forbade capitulation. A torrent of interrogations assailed my mind. How long had this charade persisted? Were others entangled in this deception? And the most terrifying query of all, had I ever truly grasped the essence of the man I loved? That evening, sleep refused its embrace. Every corner of our dwelling felt constricting, overshadowed by the echoes of a revelation I had just unearthed. I perched on the edge of our matrimonial bed, device clutched in hand, my gaze fixed on the expanse above, replaying his communications endlessly, each word seared, a stark reminder that the individual I cherished might no longer truly exist, at least, not the version I believed I knew. The subsequent dawn, I assumed a facade of normalcy. I mechanically performed the daily rituals of preparing nourishment, brewing the morning draft, and even managed a smile when he entered the space. Yet, within a tempest brewed, I observed him sip his coffee, his gaze unblemished and artless, completely oblivious that my understanding of him had irrevocably shifted. An urge to challenge him, to demand explanations surged, but apprehension paralyzed me. What if the reality proved more dire than my imaginings? What if confronting him utterly devastated me? By mid-afternoon, the delay became intolerable. I yearned for clarity. I craved the complete narrative. I convinced myself I would handle the matter with measured composure, as if all was as it should be. But the moment I settled opposite him at the kitchen table, my pulse hammered a frantic rhythm in my chest. "Listen, might we converse?" I inquired, my voice a mere hushed inquiry. He looked at me, a perplexed, nascent smile playing on his lips. "Of course. What troubles you?" I willed myself to find my breath, to calm my trembling digits. I discovered something on your device," I articulated slowly. "Communications, identities, revelations beyond my purview." His pleasant facade dissolved. Just for a fleeting instant, the pretense evaporated, and I caught a glimpse of raw dread, a momentary apprehension he couldn't conceal. He commenced, then faltered, fumbling for articulation. "Abstain from deception," I interrupted, my tone gaining resolve now, though my frame quivered. "I require the unvarnished reality. All of it. No pretexts, no fabrications. Just the truth." He swallowed hard, looking down at his hands. A dense, oppressive quiet expanded, thick and suffocating, like a profound finality descending over everything we held dear. I didn't want you to find out this way," he finally confessed. "My intention was never to cause you pain. I lacked the means to disclose it to you." A sting of moisture in my vision, but I resisted their descent. "Then commence the telling now," I urged, my voice fractured. "I need to comprehend. I need an explanation for your motives. Please, do not cease now." He inhaled deeply, then commenced. The narrative unwound with agonizing slowness, each facet more piercing than the last. Each disclosure surpassed the previous in its gravity. A clandestine existence, rendezvous kept hidden from me, vows exchanged with another, instances of fabrication I hadn't imagined possible. My gut twisted, my core constricted, and yet I was compelled to bear witness. This was my existence, my affection, my faith, all disintegrating before me. As he spoke, I felt an odd amalgam of fury, perfidy, and a morbid curiosity. How could he accomplish all this, and still maintain such composure as if it were routine? And yet, the deeper I listened, the more I realized that grasping the entire narrative felt like confronting a looking glass mirroring my deepest anxieties and frailties. I recognized my own complicity in the deception too, how I had overlooked faint indicators, how I had placed my faith without scrutiny. Time flowed onward. Dusk painted the apartment in elongated silhouettes. When he finally concluded, I felt drained, void of feeling and utterly adrift. "What compelled such actions?" was all I could whisper. "Why would you inflict this?" He looked at me with a concoction of contrition and urgency. "Because I was terrified. Terrified of forfeiting our connection. Terrified of condemnation. Terrified of my own essence." His confession suspended in the air, delicate yet ponderous, akin to a precarious span that might collapse at any moment. An urge to unleash a cry, to flee, to erase the past entirely, surged through me. And yet A fragile thread of optimism persisted. That comprehension, however agonizing, might mend the fractured fragments. But deep down, I knew that the subsequent steps would not be easy. Faith, once fractured, proves nearly insurmountable to reconstruct, and I was uncertain of my capacity to navigate the impending decisions. Every choice, every utterance, every silence, it would shape my remaining existence. I gazed fixed upon him, no longer recognizing the familiar, but confronting an enigma. And in that moment I understood. The former reality was irrevocably altered. Ensuing days were a grueling torment. Each shared glance, every fleeting movement, every seemingly innocuous remark felt like a cunning snare. I existed in a relentless grip of apprehension, his damning admission echoing endlessly in the chambers of my mind. My appetite vanished, and slumber became a distant, taunting dream. Even the most mundane tasks felt insurmountable. Yet I was inextricably bound to the stark reality he had unveiled. The labyrinthine secrets, the pervasive falsehoods, the clandestine existence I had inadvertently unearthed. I realized I demanded irrefutable proof. His mere words were insufficient. I yearned to witness it firsthand, to validate every intricate detail. Under the cloak of darkness, when he believed me lost in the depths of sleep, I remained awake, stealthily probing, keenly attuned, silently scrutinizing. My pulse hammered, my limbs shook uncontrollably, but the imperative to uncover the truth consumed me. And then it lay before me, digital communications, visual records, clandestine arrangements that corroborated his account and revealed further, devastating layers of deceit. Each fresh discovery was a searing agony, a brutal stab to my very core. How could someone sustain such a duplicitous existence, flourishing right beneath my unsuspecting gaze? How could he offer saccharine smiles, deceitful embraces, and hollow merriment as if nothing were amiss? At daybreak, I faced him down once more. This time, there was no quarter for evasion, no space for pretense. "I know everything now," I declared, my words trembling with emotion, yet carrying an unwavering resolve. "I've seen it all. Do not attempt to deny it." He became rigid, his complexion drained of color. I saw the raw culpability, the terror, the apprehension, a cocktail of emotions he had meticulously masked until now. I never wanted it to come to this," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "I wanted to shield our bond. I wanted to safeguard your innocence. Protect me?" A sardonic, hollow chuckle escaped my lips. "By perpetuating a daily charade? By constructing a clandestine existence? That's your warped definition of security." A torrent of anguish streamed down my face, a corrosive blend of fury, perfidy, and profound sorrow. "How could you commit such an act? How could you live this way and feign affection for me?" He extended a hand, but I recoiled sharply. "Do not profane me with your touch. I crave solitude. I need a period of contemplation. My faith in you is shattered, perhaps beyond repair." For the subsequent span of time, I strove to reassemble my scattered faculties, to reclaim my fractured identity. Every time our eyes met, I felt a fierce internal conflict, a schism between the affection I still harbored and the loathing for his treachery. Every conversation was a treacherous landscape. One wrong word, one fleeting glance, and I felt as though my very foundation would crumble. Then came an unforeseen communication, a digital missive from another party, someone who had been an accomplice in his clandestine existence. The message was concise, deceptively innocuous, but it validated my darkest suspicions. His confession had been incomplete, a truncated version of the truth. There were further layers, deeper complexities. A sudden terror seized me. Dread constricted my chest, but so did a peculiar, unyielding resolve. I would no longer permit him to dictate the tale. I had to unearth the complete saga, regardless of the consequences. I devoted the night to constructing a chronological sequence, correlating identities and temporal markers, and slowly, the intricate mosaic of his deception began to form. It was far more dire than my darkest conjectures. Not merely a solitary falsehood, nor a singular act of perfidy, but an intricate tapestry of concealed truths, meticulously woven over an extended period. He had orchestrated, misled, and hidden, and now I had to grapple with the stark actuality of what our bond had truly been. As the first light touched the sky, I felt utterly spent, spiritually depleted, but also possessed of an unexpected strength. I held the revelations, wielded the unvarnished facts, and that bestowed upon me a newfound command. But the most arduous segment still lay ahead, facing him once more, insisting on explanations to the interrogations that blazed within my consciousness. Why? How? Who else knew? And, most terrifying of all, was any part of our shared history genuine? That afternoon, my restraint finally gave way. I faced him anew, this time within the sun-drenched chamber of our dwelling, where light carved stark patterns across the tiles, illuminating every recess, every obscure corner, as if the very cosmos bore witness to our dissolution. "I sense a deeper current," I uttered, my tone hushed yet piercing. "I'm aware of the figures, the gatherings, the fabrications you've intricately threaded into the tapestry of our existence. Disclose it all immediately. No further concealment, no more pretexts." He slumped onto the divan, shielding his features with his hands. A tremor of terror and contrition shook his frame. I wish to spare you this aspect of my being," he whispered. "I believed I could manage it alone, that its presence would remain forever concealed." "You deem deceit a form of control," I retorted, my steps quickening across the expanse. "You considered concealing your existence from me, feigning tranquility, an acceptable course." His gaze lifted, wide and imploring. "Please grant me a hearing. I can elucidate. I've erred, certainly, yet my affection for you remained constant. I was consumed by apprehension, unsure how to be forthright without raising our entire world." His utterances struck me like a tempest, rending the delicate covering of my indignation and disillusionment. I yearned to credit his narrative truly, but every instinct within me clamored that our faith had fractured. "You've demolished our foundation," I breathed. "Do you grasp the gravity of your actions? How could you maintain such a monumental deception without my perception?" He gulped, moisture shimmering in his gaze. "I comprehend. I perceive it now, and my regret is boundless. I cannot undo my deeds, but I will undertake any measure to rectify this. Anything." A primal urge to bellow, to strike, to unleash the vortex of agony and indignation consumed me. Yet I remained mute, allowing the burden of his disclosure, his trepidation, and my profound sorrow to permeate the space. Each tick of the clock dilated into infinity. My thoughts rewound to every shared instant, every joyous sound, every caress, and I found myself unable to discern the authentic from the fabricated. Then, abruptly, he unveiled the segment I had not anticipated. "There's an additional element," he uttered, his voice quavering. "An additional individual. Not merely one, but multiple." I was at a loss for how to convey this. My breast constricted. It felt as though the very breath had been siphoned from the chamber. My hands convulsed uncontrollably. "What do you signify by multiple?" I inquired, even as a part of me dreaded the forthcoming response. He swallowed, then commenced enumerating identities, chronologies, locales, affiliations beyond my wildest conjecture. Each uncovering struck with greater force than the preceding. A wave of sickness washed over me, my intellect reeling in utter incredulity. How could an individual sustain such an existence, orchestrating deceptions and disloyalties, while concurrently feigning devotion daily? I lurched toward the culinary space, yearning for hydration, for respiration, for an anchor in the starkness of reality. The confines of our abode appeared to compress, stifling me. Wrath, anguish, bewilderment, and an immense void enveloped my spirit. Every recollection, every shared beam of happiness, now seemed irrevocably stained. Perched on the perimeter of the counter, I grasped that this transcended mere disloyalty. It pertained to fundamental preservation of emotion, of intellect, and even of spirit. I faced the stark choice: to fully engage this individual, to try and reclaim fragments of our bond, or to sever all ties irrevocably, abandoning the entirety of our co-constructed edifice. The celestial orb commenced its descent, projecting elongated silhouettes that echoed the ambiguity of my forthcoming path. And as the interior grew dim, a singular realization solidified within me. My existence would never again be as it was. The bare truth, now unveiled, had irrevocably altered our course, and henceforth the ultimate decision rested solely with me. The following dawn, I awoke to a profound emptiness, as if oblivion had offered no solace. Each faint whisper, every subtle stir, echoed his presence. Of the fabrications, the clandestine existence, the perfidies I was only then beginning to grasp. Perched precariously on the bed's rim, my gaze fixed upon the unyielding floorboards, I pondered what profound obfuscation had veiled my perception. How could I have reposed such absolute faith in a soul, only to be abandoned adrift within this maelstrom of artifice? I decided I could no longer abide his protracted silence or expect his elucidation. I had to seize the initiative. I meticulously sifted through every particular he had given me: dates, names, locales, reconstructing the intricate labyrinth of his concealed narrative. Every subsequent disclosure eclipsed the previous in its staggering impact. Confidants I had held dear were implicated, places he claimed to frequent were mere fictions, and pledges he had uttered were meticulously fabricated phantasms. As the sun climbed higher, settling into its afternoon arc, I was utterly spent, my vision rimmed with crimson from relentless scrutiny of an incessant stream of missives and memoranda. Yet an unsettling lucidity crystallized from the disarray. Painful as it was, this newfound insight endowed me with potency. I could no longer be swayed by artifice. I was immune to further fabrication. I possessed the unvarnished reality, empowering me to chart my singular course. I faced him once more, this time fortified by undeniable proof, rather than mere conjecture. Every shred has been unearthed, I declared, my tone a frigid, unwavering, resolute cadence. The clandestine communiques, the incriminating images, the covert encounters, it's all laid out before me. I possess full cognizance of every participant and particular. The unvarnished reality offers no avenue of retreat now. He collapsed onto the divan, utterly mute. His gaze flitted nervously about the chamber, almost as if he were seeking an egress. I can offer an account, he began, but I raised a prohibitive palm. No, not this time. I have heeded, observed, and brought to light. I demand the absolute, unadulterated veracity, else I will irrevocably depart. For the first time, I witnessed genuine terror seize him. Beyond mere apprehension, a palpable despair. Plead, he rasped. I never intended to inflict such anguish. I believed I could orchestrate this intricate charade, never imagined such a precipice. Abandon me not. A tempest of warring sentiments, fury, sorrow, affection, and perfidy, all in tumultuous collision inside me. I yearned to unleash a primal cry, to flee, to shatter all that surrounded me. But I didn't. I compelled myself to draw breath, to achieve mental clarity. I am uncertain if absolution can ever be extended, I stated slowly. I doubt my capacity to ever again place my faith in you. But you shall disclose the entirety, every last particular, or any prospect of reconciliation utterly perishes. The hands of the clock crawled as he confessed every clandestine truth, every artifice, each concealed falsehood. Every subsequent narrative proved more agonizing than its precursor, and with each revelation, my spirit sank with profound weight, yet simultaneously honed itself, growing more unyielding. I could see the fissures in his composure, the utter despair, the profound penitence, and I realized that while I might have cherished an ephemeral phantom, a construct of my own desire, I still retained the agency to sculpt my own destiny. As dusk enveloped the world, I was utterly depleted in body, lacerated in spirit, yet firmly resolved. I possessed the absolute veracity now. The road ahead remained nebulous, strewn with agony and arduous decisions, but it was my singular journey to traverse. I could elect to remain, to extend pardon, or to sever ties and reclaim my sovereign existence. And in that moment, staring at him across the room, I grasped a fundamental insight. Perfidy irrevocably alters all, but the acquisition of truth bestows the power to endure, to contend, and to ascend more formidable than ever. The ensuing days descended like an unrelenting tempest. Every aspect of my existence became overshadowed by the dark specter of his hidden truths. Cherished friendships, beloved haunts, treasured memories, all now felt sullied, tainted by the chilling realization that I had been living within an elaborate artifice. My perception of him was irrevocably altered, yet a tender part of me still yearned for the idealized individual I believed I had loved. I endlessly replayed each shared moment, every laugh, every tender touch. Was any of it authentic? I questioned, my knuckles white as I gripped the cold kitchen counter, tethered precariously to reality. Or had I merely been an unwitting player in a script he penned for his own gratification, a narrative where I was never meant to witness the final scene? He made a tentative approach, reaching for my hand, his apologies a fragile whisper once more. "This was never my intention, I swear," he murmured, his voice laced with a raw tremor. "My love for you is real. It remains." I recoiled, my head shaking in an emphatic denial. "Love." I breathed, the word a bitter taste. "Do you grasp its true meaning? Love does not thrive in secrecy. It is not built upon a tapestry of falsehoods and clandestine rendezvous. It cannot exist when one wears a mask, while the person you claim to cherish stumbles upon the brutal truth by sheer accident." His gaze shimmered with unshed tears. "I acknowledge my failings. I know I caused you immense pain. But please grant me an opportunity to make amends." My body screamed to unleash a torrent of anguish, to shatter into a million pieces. Instead, a sensation I hadn't known in weeks pierced through the haze. Absolute clarity. I don't require him to mend this, I thought. I only require myself. A deep breath steadied the tumultuous whirlwind of emotions within me. "I need space," I declared, my voice firm. "Time to process. Time to discern if this bond is worth salvaging, or if it's time to sever ties completely." Over the subsequent days, I meticulously gathered further attestations, corroborating every narrative, every act of perfidy. It was vast and staggering, yet with each unearthed fragment of truth, a burgeoning inner fortitude began to grow. He might have once dictated the falsehoods, but his sway over my spirit was now broken. I was meticulously piecing back together the fragments of my own existence. Then came the pivotal reckoning, the encounter that would reshape everything. I laid bare before him the entire edifice. Every proof, each fabrication, all veiled realities. "This concludes now," I stated, my tone unwavering, resolute. "No more pretense. No more manipulation. The choice is yours. Divulge the complete reality, or witness my final departure, without a backward glance." His countenance crumpled, burdened by the inescapable gravity of his deeds. For the first time, I glimpsed unadulterated dread, sincere contrition, and the stark recognition that actions carry inevitable consequences. I will tell you everything," he whispered. "The age of hidden truths is over. I promise." As his confession unfolded, peeling back the ultimate veils of deceit, a subtle transformation bloomed within my core. The sharp edges of rage, the sting of treachery, the crushing weight of sorrow, all persisted, potent and unvarnished. Yet now they were softened by insight, fortified by the certainty of my own resilience, by the knowledge that I could forge my own destiny, even if it necessitated turning from the figure who had once held my affections. By the dawn of the new day, I was utterly spent, my spirit depleted, yet imbued with an unshakable resolve. Reality had emerged from shadows. Deceptions had been laid bare. And though the forthcoming journey remained veiled in mist, I finally knew one thing for certain. I possessed the inherent authority to chart my own course. The subsequent dawn, the dwelling had shed its usual veneer. The atmosphere hung suffocatingly, thick with unarticulated pressure, and the phantom declarations suspended between us. In his gaze, I discerned the crushing burden of his transgressions, the conscience that had finally cornered him. A curious serenity, unprecedented, enveloped me. My path forward solidified. I positioned him, my outward composure a stark contrast to the tempest raging within. "We must unearth the entire narrative," I stated with unyielding resolve. "I require every particular, each identity, every fabrication, every clandestine scheme. No fragment to be withheld, no justification to be offered." His throat worked, and he offered a slight nod. "I understand," he barely audible whispered. "I will disclose everything." As his words began, the intricate strata of his falsehoods commenced to unfurl before me. Cherished individuals, perceived sanctuaries, authentic memories, the very foundations of my belief system, had been meticulously engineered. Each disclosure pierced deeply, yet I maintained an unbreakable front. I diligently catalogued the specifics, engraving every name, every timeline, every admission into my consciousness. This newfound understanding, I recognized, was my sole armament against the turmoil he had wrought. Time bled away. By late afternoon, weariness gnawed at my resolve, but I pressed forward. Each confessed fabrication illuminated not merely his concealed existence, but also the insidious blueprints of his deceit, previously invisible to me. And with each revelation, a burgeoning sense of command ignited within me. The reins of my reality were steadily returning to my grasp, like an inexorable tide reasserting its dominion over the coastline. Finally, he subsided into a profound quiet, his visage ashen and depleted. My gaze finally pierced beyond the superficial, and I beheld the raw essence of the individual beneath the fabrication, shattered, fear-ridden, stripped bare to an undeniable truth. "The unveiling is complete," I articulated, my tone hushed yet resolute. "The full scope of your narrative is mine. The prerogative for what transpires henceforth rests solely with me." The subsequent hours were consumed by deep contemplation, introspection, and strategic formulation. While transparency had been achieved, the intricate tapestry of its repercussions was now solely mine to unravel. The crossroads presented themselves, to endeavor to reconstruct from the wreckage, or to depart, carrying forth the profound insights, the indelible marks, and the formidable fortitude forged by this harrowing trial. The path ahead was fraught with difficulty. Each ingrained impulse, every echo of past affection, exerted a powerful draw toward one course, while the profound ache of treachery, the sting of infidelity, and the dread of renewed vulnerability tugged vehemently in the opposing direction. It became acutely clear that affection, in isolation, proved insufficient. The essential pillars of confidence, candor, and reverence were indispensable, and in their absence, the very bedrock of our connection was irrevocably shattered. As dawn broke, my resolution solidified. I would no longer inhabit the role of the defrauded, nor would I permit falsehoods to chart the course of my existence. A serenity, astonishing even to myself, settled upon me. I gathered my necessities and exited the dwelling, relinquishing the individual I had once cherished and the existence constructed upon hidden truths. Emerging into the morning's illumination, a subtle alleviation graced the burden upon my spirit. It was not the idyllic conclusion I had envisioned, yet it was precisely the resolution my being demanded. I had endured profound treachery, unearthed the unvarnished reality, and successfully repossessed my autonomy. And in that singular instant, a profound revelation resonated within me. That often, mere perseverance stands as the most courageous act conceivable. Weeks passed, and life began to feel different. The emptiness that had once consumed me slowly gave way to a fragile sense of freedom. I had walked away from the lies, from the manipulation, from the life that had been built on someone else's secrets. The apartment felt lighter, my steps felt lighter, and the air I breathed tasted like control. My control. But the aftermath wasn't simple. Friends reached out, confused, some taking sides, others distancing themselves. He tried to contact me, pleading, apologizing, promising change, but I didn't respond. Every message, every call was a reminder of what had been lost and what I had survived. I realized that closure didn't come from someone else. It came from within. I spent hours reflecting on the lessons hidden in the pain. Betrayal cuts deep, but it also teaches. It teaches you to listen to your instincts, to see the signs you once ignored, and to never give blind trust again. It teaches resilience, courage, and the value of self-worth. And most importantly, it teaches that leaving can be an act of strength, not weakness. Months later, I found myself walking through the city streets, feeling alive in a way I hadn't for a long time. The sunlight warmed my face, strangers smiled without suspicion, and every step reminded me that the world hadn't ended, only the chapter that had nearly destroyed me. I allowed myself small joys, a coffee at my favorite cafe, a walk in the park, a conversation with a friend who truly understood me. These moments, though simple, felt monumental. Sometimes memories of him came rushing back, the smiles, the whispers, the moments that had once seemed real. But I no longer allowed them to anchor me in the past. I had learned to separate the illusion from reality, the love I imagined from the love that truly existed. And in that separation, I found clarity. One evening, I sat alone, looking at the city lights stretching endlessly before me. I whispered to myself, almost as a vow, I survived. I uncovered the truth. I am stronger than the lies that tried to trap me. And in that moment, I knew it was true. The betrayal, the heartbreak, the secrets, they had not broken me. They had shaped me, strengthened me, and ultimately set me free. I had learned the hardest lesson of all. Survival isn't just about living through the pain. It's about walking out of it with your spirit intact and your heart still willing to trust, to hope, and to love again. The truth had changed everything, but it had not destroyed me. It had given me the one thing I had been searching for all along, myself,